Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
130 million people take road trips every year. 15,400 of them are never seen again. Have you heard the story of the passenger that's been circulating online lately? A young couple set out on a van life trip, but a few nights in, they came across a brutal car accident on the side of the road. I'm not talking about a typical crash. Something about this was off. And there's one detail that keeps coming up. The car they found had 3 deep scratches carved into the side. Not dents, scratches. They stopped, they saw it, and then they left. But here's where things got strange. Not long after, creepy things start happening. They began to feel like they weren't alone in the van, like something followed them from that road. People online have started connecting it to something they're calling the passenger. Supposedly, it attaches itself to anyone who encounters it and marks their car with 3 scratches. And once that happens, it doesn't let go. If these reports are true, this couple didn't just witness something on that highway, they carried it with them. From Andre Overdahl, director of Autopsy of Jane Doe, comes Passenger. Only in theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's our sporadic queer horror movie roundup, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're going back just a few years to discuss Pat Mills's queer horror film, The Retreat, a film that I remember you watching back then, Joe, but it totally, skipped by me.
Yeah, so this is a Canadian slasher film, and it's a queer slasher film, so that was part of the reason I covered it, and it's now celebrating its 5th anniversary, and I don't mind it. I don't love it. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. I think there's good and bad, but I didn't think that there was quite enough here for us to do a full episode on, hence a Micro Queers episode.
Yeah, this is a movie that is, I think it hits the end credits before the 80-minute mark. I might even push back on calling it a slasher, considering we have, I guess I was we kill those gay guys at the beginning, but we don't. We kidnap them in the beginning and we kill them later, but...
Yes, and that's not my descriptor. That's the description used in the marketing and the Wikipedia entry.
That is interesting. Yeah, because I wanted to call this home invasion, but that's not really what it is.
To me, this is part of that trend, honestly, we were getting about 5 to 6 years ago where everything was Airbnb horror.
Yes. Oh, I didn't even think about that. See, I've already left that time behind.
Are you forgetting the Dave Franco Alyson Brie movie of nearly the exact same day, of exactly the same name?
How could you remember that movie? It was so forgettable. Go back and listen to our episode on it.
Admittedly, yes. I think maybe what we're discovering is that this is it's harder to execute than maybe most people realize. It can't just be, you go to some place and it's scary shit happening.
Yeah, I think from that period, the kind of pinnacle or the epitome of what this Airbnb horror is probably Barbarian. But
oh, wow. Yes.
But The Retreat, I was happy to watch this, because I remember you talking about it. I remember you had mixed feelings on it back then, so I'm interested to hear how your opinion changed. But yeah, I thought this was fine, but a good fine, not my it's fine,
This is perfectly serviceable. It's not going to rock your socks or anything. But if you were looking for a very specifically queer-oriented horror film, this could do the trick.
Yeah, honestly, my gripe with this had more to do with some of the reception. Because, I did my thing where I went to go peruse Letterboxd to see what some of our peers and some of my friends had talked about this. And yeah, the kind of recurring bit that I kept seeing was that these characters made really stupid decisions. And
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that. I think they do everything that they could possibly do in this situation, which, they're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, and folks, if you haven't seen this, I think we're default assuming people know what we're talking about. But yeah, so The Retreat from 2021, it centers around a lesbian couple, Renee, who is Tommie-Amber Pirie, and her girlfriend Val, who is played by Sarah Allen. Actually, we shouldn't even call them girlfriends, because that's part of the inciting conflict between these characters, is that Renee is afraid to commit to Val. I'll confess, it's probably my least favorite part of the movie, but it feels like we needed something else to get the movie started.
I think that's the thing, is because this movie is very much about them being queer.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the rest of that logline, by the way, is that, they're going to a pre-wedding retreat and they end up fighting for their lives, and a group of militant serial killers, aka aggressive homophobes, try to murder them. And these homophobes, by the way, we have James, played by Aaron Ashmore, twin of, is it Sean Ashmore? Sean. Yeah. And Gavin, played by Rossif Sutherland, of Orphan First Kill fame.
Yes, and also last year's terrible movie by Oz Perkins.
Keeper, yes. But yeah, I think, on a genre level, this movie is pretty bare bones, run-of-the-mill, like nothing really new here. And
it's survival horror. Yeah, like they show up, they immediately start to get hunted, and then they have to fight back and hopefully not get too injured or killed.
Exactly. And so... yeah, the scripted stuff with their relationship, I do kind of find... I was going to say the least essential, Joe, but I do feel like something along those lines is essential to a movie like this. I just didn't find it that engaging.
Yeah, I think part of it is that we don't know quite enough about Renee and Val as individuals. We're definitely thrust into their relationship where Val is looking for a little bit more commitment. She wants to have some conversations about where the relationship is going. And as someone who probably identifies a little bit more like a Val in real life, I understood this character. She's a little bit more buttoned up. She's a little bit more professional. She's the one with the fancy coffee maker. And then on the flip side, we have Renee, who is the person who cannot figure out the fancy coffee maker. She's more resistant to being in queer spaces. Like, I understood her implicitly. She just isn't exactly sure about making a commitment to Val. She's not exactly sure what she's looking for. But I also got some interesting internalized homophobia from her, and there's zero backstory for me to unpack that with, and that's what I was missing.
Yeah, I'm of two minds about this, because I agree with you. Like, I also picked up on that, but the movie doesn't raise it at all. It's only implied, if we can even say it's implied. And I almost respect the movie for not being like, she's a commitment phobe because she had a really bad experience growing up queer, because we've seen that story a lot. But we've seen it a lot because it happens.
It's common.
A lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I almost like that we're not going through the motions of another one of those types of backstories for this character, but at the same time,
we're missing something.
We're missing a backstory, period, about why she feels this way.
Yeah, and there is an interesting survivalist sort of element to her. She knows how to shoot a gun, and she is also the more aggressive of the two women. She's the one who's more likely to fight back against these men. We do kind of follow her a little bit more than we follow Val, who gets sidelined for a portion in the second act.
Oh, because she's kidnapped.
She gets kidnapped, but we stay mostly with Renee as opposed to Val. The reason we cut back to Val is so that she can watch her gay friend get murdered in front of her eyes.
Yeah.
But there is this tantalizing little, you can parse through it, you can read between the lines backstory when it comes to Renee, which is that the reason she knows how to do all of this is because her father used to take her shooting. And I don't know, I was hesitant to suggest that, she's a little bit more butch coded. I'm using air quotes or even scare quotes for this, because she had a father who was maybe a little bit more rough, a little bit less polished, maybe a little bit more poor. But those are all things that you have to infer based on how the character dresses, talks, and this little tiny sliver of backstory. And again, I'm like, the movie is so short.
Yeah.
I wish we could have just taken a couple more minutes to say, like, hey, Renee, what's your fucking problem? Why are you so opposed to being in a female-female relationship?
And as you said, like, I mean, I think just the way she acts, her clothes, I noticed her clothes.
Progress for you.
It all feeds into that. And maybe that's something where it's like, hey, look, if you know, like, if you're queer, you'll probably get it. If you're straight, I don't know, maybe you won't. Who knows?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on, so, how your thoughts have changed. Has your opinion on this film risen over the past 5 years?
It has, yeah. And I cued you to this. Part of the other reason I wanted to re-examine it is because I had a pretty negative relationship to the film when I first covered it. I did a review of this back in the day on my website, so it's floating around if you want to check it out. But I had a pretty significant issue that I didn't tell you about. I wanted you to watch the movie and that I was going to flag it. And it turned out to not be as much of a big deal as I made it out to be the first time. So we've mentioned that the two women are going to a pre-wedding retreat. So it's, this really gorgeous cabin out in the middle of the Ontario woods. Because you can definitely see the CN Tower, so this is a Toronto set film if you know Toronto. Anyway, they get out to this cottage and they can't find the other two guys who we have already seen get abducted in the cold open. But there's a moment where Renee gets out of her restraints and she goes to find Val, and she sits there and watches as Val watches one of these guys get axed to death.
Right.
And I remember feeling really fucking pissed off that this woman doesn't make any attempt to help this other guy. Admittedly, in Renee's defense, she doesn't know him. She's also outmanned by these, homophobes who have, I think we know that they have guns, but they definitely also have axes. But the first time I watched it, it felt very gendered, I'm going to say.
Like gays.
Yeah, like it was a gay versus lesbian thing. She was only going to try to protect her girlfriend, and she didn't give a shit about these gay men. And looking back, that was something I definitely projected onto the screen because she's clearly hesitant about just jumping into action. Like, she waits until she can get a quiet moment to rescue Val, and then they arm up, and then they, kill these motherfuckers.
Yeah, I actually found this to be, you did not clue me into this before I watched it, but you did bring it up after the fact. And then I had to go back and, think about the scene, too, where I was like, okay, wait, maybe I'm just being too lenient with this. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's I don't know, man. What is she going to do? She can risk going to save him, but likely die in there. It's a risk assessment thing, right?
Yeah, I think it was more that there's never a moment where it seems like she even considers going to help this guy.
Right.
And at the time, I felt very frustrated with that. I think the other thing is that I did have my backup a little bit against screenwriter Alyson Richards, because she had done a couple of interviews in the lead up to this, because a lot of the interviews were talking about how she and her girlfriend went to an Airbnb, a cottage or somewhere a little bit isolated, and she realized if these people had used this as a trap, hey, we're marketing, we're advertising to queer people with the intention of harming them, she felt really vulnerable. And I was like, that's a great premise for a film, and that's how you get this. But she also, in some of these interviews, talked about how it felt like queer horror hadn't been very respectful to queers in the past. And, she really wanted to change that and have these women be active agents who were going to fight back, and they weren't going to die, they weren't going to get fridged and so on. And in 2021, Trace, I was just like, I don't know. This feels like a really antiquated perspective on queer horror specifically. So I went into the film already being like, I'm not sure this woman knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Also, I guess to give you a little bit of slack, 2021 was also a bit of a different time because we were still in the midst of a pandemic. And
indeed.
For over a year by that point.
It's that, and also I have to remember that not everyone is making their fucking living talking about queer horror. Sure, she's out there saying, I'm making a queer horror film, but she probably didn't spend, a couple of years doing deep dives into every fucking iteration of it. So I just, it was good to 5 years later check my privilege and myself.
Well, I will say, because I wasn't familiar with the work of Alyson Richards, and I haven't seen anything else she's done, but she is in one episode of Shudder's Queer for Fear documentary on queer horror.
Oh, nice. Okay, lovely.
Which, granted, that series came out the year after this, so she may be on there talking about this movie.
Probably this movie. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, yeah, and the reception for this was pretty good at the time. I mean, we're looking at a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 2.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I'm waffling between a 2.5 out of 3. I'm probably leaning towards a 3 more, just because I don't think this is overtly bad. It's just kind of running into this thing where it's like, yeah, I've seen this story before. We're just swapping it out for straight people for lesbians and, generic bad guys for homophobic bad guys.
Yeah, and in some ways, that's kind of great, right? We talk about the varying types of representation we want to see on the screen, and sometimes that representation looks like, oh, it just happens to be a queer person in a story that we see being told before, because queer people also have stories that look very similar to a lot of other people. They just happen to be queer.
Very much so, but I thought about this, and I know this is something that we've talked about before, where it's kind of, I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, I've seen this movie before. It's that movie, but with queer people. And I just wonder if we, as in the queer horror landscape, if it's like,
our little niche bubble.
Well, it's like, do we have to go through like the motions of, okay, we're going to do like this movie with straight people, but make it queer? Like, that's the big change, And it's like, yeah, that is a significant change, but it still feels like, the same movie I've seen before. And
right.
And that's not to say this movie is bad in any way. I just kind of wish there was just something else here to distinguish it.
I will say there is one element we haven't really talked about that I do think could have set it a little bit more apart. But again, we introduce it, but we don't really explore it, which is we don't really understand the rationale of why these people are doing this, except that they clearly find queer people reprehensible. They tell Renee and Val, you're disgusting and stuff like that. But there's also glimpses of a control room because they're filming these murders.
Yep.
They're live streaming it. And we at one point see that there's about 2,000 plus people watching, commenting on it. And I was like, oh, this is giving Hostel kind of stuff, right?
Very
like a queer version of Hostel, where we're deliberately feeding a community of homophobes who are willing to pay for this kind of coverage. And I would have loved to have seen that interrogated or investigated a little bit more. Part of me, it's 2021, and I thought, oh, these people don't seem very sophisticated. That's going to get tracked back to their IP, and these motherfuckers are going to go down, even if Renee and Val hadn't gotten out of here.
The funny thing, maybe it's not funny, but I did clock that, but I was like, 2000 seems like a little low for like Kill the Gay snuff films. I feel like there'll be a lot more people in the world that are willing to watch this stuff.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that this was just the Canadians who were watching.
Maybe.
Because that seems a little bit more inferiority complex Canadian style.
I will give this movie one thing though. It has a banger death scene. So one of these homophobes we haven't mentioned is Lena, portrayed by Selena Sinden. And again, it doesn't really get much development. She's just this kind of one note like white bitch homophobe. And
she's the wife of one of the two guys. I think we can assume. I think it's Ross F. Sutherland's Gavin.
I thought so as well, but honestly couldn't tell you. But basically, like, she's, her final scene, we have Renee just drop a large TV monitor on her head. And this isn't just, I was of course thinking immediately of Matthew Moon's death and Scream. Yep. But I love that we don't get, it's not the electric shock we get. It's her head just gets squashed by this thing.
Yeah, it's fully, we raise the TV up above our head and just bring it down, and this woman's head hops like a balloon. I will say, I feel like you are a little bit cooler on this than me. I'm somewhere between about a 3 and a 3.5, because I actually also think this movie looks really good. It is too fucking dark a lot of times. Like, I tried to watch this in midday and I had to draw all of the curtains because I couldn't see anything at night. But apart from that, it looks good. Like, the colors pop, it's well shot and so on. But I was surprised at how good the gore looks. When we see, spoiler alert, James, the Aaron Ashmore character, get killed, he gets axed in the back of the head, and I thought the prosthetic looked good.
Yeah, I think that comes to the trade-off, though, because we don't actually linger on the deaths of Connor and his boyfriend. We actually are, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like we're staring at the camera, or we're watching either Aaron Ashmore or Sutherland, like, watch them through the camera. So we're not actually seeing the gore there, which is great, because that means we get to save it for these homophobic assholes.
Exactly, yeah. So we know know that queer people are getting killed in this world, but we're not lingering on their deaths. We're actually really just leaning into the gore for the homophobes, which is kind of nice.
Exactly. And so here's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, this is a very cathartic ending. You know, we kill all these motherfuckers. I would have taken even longer torture scenes with them just because that's what these people deserve. But,
Yeah.
I mean, for basically a 75-minute movie that's in and out, like, it gets the job done.
I would agree, yeah. And folks, if part of this sounded a little bit familiar, Trace and I had to go back through. We talked about a movie in 2025 called We Kill Them All, which is about girlfriends who go home for Christmas and they end up having to fight for their lives, not distinctly against homophobes, but one of their dad had shady dealings and these people came to collect. But anyway, they end up having to fight for their lives. And it has a similar kind of vibe. But I would say that I think the production quality of this film looked better. But, you know, double bill, if you were looking for, you know, queer women fighting for their lives at a kind of isolated area, you could do worse than that.
I was going to say, I think I was thinking about that movie when I was watching this, because I was watching this and I was like, I feel like I've seen this before. But it's mostly, it's lesbians in like a resort, like snowy, woodsy setting, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone, but let us know if you checked this out. What did you think of The Retreat? How does it stack up against some of the other queer horror films you've been watching recently? Or has it aged well, even in just the 5 years since its release?
There we go. Yeah.
But until next time, we can cross out The Retreat.
Indeed. And cross out microqueers.
Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
Today's episode is presented by Corporate Retreat, in theaters May 22nd via Western Film Services and Passage Pictures. Described as a gory mix of The Menu and Saw, Corporate Retreat centers around a group of young executives whose luxury team-building trip descends into a bloody fight for survival against a vengeful retreat leader, played by the inimitable Alan Ruck. At the center of this horror comedy is an eclectic cast that also includes Odeya Rush, Sasha Lane, Ashton Sanders, Zion Marino, Kirby Johnson, and Rosanna Arquette. Aaron Fisher directs from a script he co-wrote with Carrie Lee Romeo, with special makeup effects handled by Candyman and Scream 4 maestro Gary J. Tunnicliffe. You'll laugh, you'll cringe, you'll cover your eyes when Corporate Retreat hits theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.